Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at a brand new... Well, it's a new energy card. And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of cool, and kind of weird, and kind of specific, and I'm not 100% sure how many people are really going to want it. But then I can also look at this and go, no, actually, no, that looks really cool. So I don't know. Let's have a gander. So what it is, and of course our translation comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet. I'm assuming by now you probably guessed that. And what we've got is Coating Metal Energy. And it is a metal energy. And remember, these new ones, they are a metal energy regardless of which Pokemon they're attached to. But when it's attached to a metal Pokemon, that metal Pokemon has no weakness. And my first reaction here is, well, that's really cool. We got some really good metal Pokemon around at the moment. Pokemon like Zacian and Zamazenta, we'll get back to them later, that are really quite good and seeing a huge amount of play, and it would be really nice if they had a special energy card that would take away their weakness. And then that sounded a bit funny to me. That sounded a bit familiar. And then I realised they've already got a special energy card that can take away their weakness. It's Weakness Guard Energy. So I suppose we should probably start off with the entirely valid question of, are we really going to want to play this over Weakness Guard Energy? And when would we want to play it over Weakness Guard Energy? Well, one of the first things to point out is that Weakness Guard Energy has got 1 year left. It is, and I'll do a video probably about this in like March or something when I tend to do, but it is essentially already confirmed. Look at the little letters we've got on all of the Sword and Shield On cards, that we are going to be rotating to Sword and Shield On end of August, beginning of September next year. So for that reason, we are going to lose Weakness Guard Energy in a year. So what we could say is, well, look, okay, fine, ignore the next year. As of end of August, beginning of September 2021, Weakness Guard Energy is going to go away, and at that stage, the conversation around this card is going to be very different. And there's an excellent chance that in about a year's time, I am going to be having a look and probably doing another video about this card, because the conversation is going to change entirely. Because at that stage, other typings are not going to have this special energy. They're only going to be for metal, and at that stage, things are going to be very, very different. So, okay, we've said that. As of September 2021, when metal decks have this and other decks lose Weakness Guard Energy, things are going to be very different. But what about but at that point, it's amazing, right? At that point, you're just getting rid of your weakness. Getting rid of weakness is awesome. And getting rid of weakness with just attaching an energy. The fact that Weakness Guard Energy has seen play should tell you that any metal deck that is decent is probably going to want to play this when Weakness Guard Energy goes away. Of course, it is also very much worth pointing out that when Weakness Guard Energy goes away, Welder is also going to be going away at the same time. So there is a fair question to be asked here as to how good fire decks are going to be when Welder goes away, and whether that weakness to fire that metal decks have is even going to be particularly relevant. But again, we're jumping forward a year here. What about the next year? What about the next 12 months, and pretty much exactly 12 months, almost to the day, when we do have Weakness Guard Energy and we've got this Coating Metal Energy? Is anybody going to want to play it? And honestly, the real question is, do you need that metal energy? Maybe we do. Maybe we do. I mean, there's a really nice combo here with Cobalion GX. You see, Cobalion GX has got a really nice ability, and it doesn't see a huge amount of play, but it pops up here and there. Metal Symbol. This is team-ups that will survive this rotation and rotate out in a year. Each of your Pokemon that has any metal energy attached to it can't be affected by any special conditions. So now, if you've got this Coating Metal Energy attached, you are now immune to special conditions and you have no weakness, whereas Weakness Guard Energy will just remove your weakness. So certainly, if you wanted to go down the Cobalion route, and I can see a strong argument to do so, yeah, this is a much better card. Really, it depends on what we're paying in terms of attack cost. And actually, if we look at Zamazenta, metal, colourless, it can just use weakness guard energy. But if we have a look at Zacian, it's metal. So fine, yeah, sure, we can attach a weakness guard energy to Zacian, and that will get rid of your weakness, but it won't pay for your attack, so you've got to have metal, weakness guard energy. And as far as I'm concerned, looking at Cobalion and Zacian tells me straight off the bat, this is significantly better than weakness guard energy. This isn't a case of, well, you know, you could play either one, it doesn't really matter. And obviously here we need to differentiate between a hybrid deck and a pure metal deck. Obviously, if you're playing something like Zacian ADP, you could use weakness guard energy to take away the weakness of your Arceus and Dialga and Palkia. And that does attack for water, metal, colourless. So there is a colourless cost there. So in that kind of deck, maybe it's worth playing weakness guard energy for that. But in a pure metal deck, something like a Zacian deck playing Lucario and Melmetal, this seems like a no-brainer to me. Now, sure, you're going to need some basic metal energy for Metal Saucer. And at the moment, we've got Duraludon, which does 30 damage and accelerates 1 energy. That is soon going to be replaced by Dialga that does no damage but accelerates 2 energy. And over in Japan, we've already seen that switch, because Dialga is out in Japan. We've already seen that switch happening. Metal decks are moving away from Duraludon to Dialga, basically going, look, I would rather do 30 less damage and accelerate an extra energy. So you still need to be wary of that. You need to be aware of the fact that this cannot be accelerated with Metal Saucer, that this cannot be accelerated with Dialga or Duraludon, because in the discard pile it doesn't count as a metal energy. But in a pure metal deck, I refuse to believe this isn't going to be played. I mean, Heat Fire energy is the fire special energy. It gives you an extra 20 HP. And even though these fighting decks, they use Welder to accelerate basic fire. They use Giant Half to search out basic fire. They use Fire Crystal to recover basic fire. And yet when you look at Center Scorch V Max decks, they are still playing at least a couple copies of Heat Fire energy, because they're looking at this and going, yeah, it's extra HP. We're still definitely going to be playing a little bit of this. So you do need to bear in mind that it can't be accelerated through the other ways, but I feel very confident this will see play. And why wouldn't it? It's a couple energy you put in your deck and all of a sudden it takes away your weakness. And sure, Center Scorch V Max has a near limitless damage output. 40 damage plus 40 for each fire energy on, and you've got Welder, and if you do any damage you accelerate another energy from the discard. Sure, that can get up to one-hit KOs pretty quickly, but actually it's going to be a whole heap faster if you're hitting for weakness. So you know what? This sounds pretty gosh darn nice. I mean, take something like Zamazenta. Now, Zamazenta can use weakness guard energy far more easily because of the colourless cost in its attack, but it's got an ability that makes it immune to Pokemon V Maxes. So, all of a sudden, Center Scorch V Max can't hit it. Now, they can still attack with Center Scorch, but Center Scorch maxes out at 180, which is not enough to get a KO. They can still use that non-GX Volcanion, or non-V Volcanion, call it what you will, but that maxes out at 110 damage, and with 230 HP, which is very high for a Pokemon V, they're not even getting a 2-hit KO. They're actually 10 damage short of a 2-hit KO. And my point here is that as soon as you attach this energy, all of a sudden those decks are really struggling to get a KO. It makes a huge difference. In a metal deck, I just flat out prefer this to weakness guard energy. And the fact of the matter is, we don't always remove weakness. Weakness is one of those things where we'll remove it if it's easy enough to play. You know, the Chandelure that came around in Rebel Clash, I'm a huge fan, because I love me some Chandelure, but it's a stage 2 that removes a weakness from all of your Pokemon. Nobody's playing it, because it's a stage 2, it's way too awkward. But then again, we're just about to see the rotation of Metal Frying Pan, which reduces damage done to you and takes away your weakness. And I know it also reduces damage done to you, but if we weren't that worried about getting rid of weakness, we'd be playing Metal Goggles that stop damage counters being dropped, especially since we've been in a format with cards like Giratina and Dragapult that have not been shy about dropping damage counters. So my point here is, in metal decks, when we put it side by side with Weakness Guard Energy, I just don't think it's a competition. If you're playing a metal deck, but there's a bunch of non-metal Pokemon that you really want to take away the weakness from, then obviously that's a very different question. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a phenomenal card that is going to be teched into any metal deck moving forward. I mean, Lucario and Melmetal decks, they made top 16 at the Japanese unofficial nationals, if we can call it that. It's the closest we've got. It's not really unofficial nationals, but best we've got. And it's still seeing play all around. And if we're willing to use a GX attack to remove 30 damage per attack, you better believe people are going to be playing special energy to take away their weakness. I'm giving this 4 Wassies because I don't think it's perfect. And there are awkward things about it. But I do believe very strongly this is going to see a whole bunch of play in a whole bunch of metal decks. And I do think it's a very good card, and I do think it's going to see a whole bunch of play. But I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.